Okay, so I'll give a bit of an introduction before I go into this digital transformation in general. A little bit about Twine. We are a company based in Israel, headquartered there, and Israel is very well known for its digital printing technologies, HP, Indigo, and Cytex from the past. And so, if you look at Twine, a lot of the DNA and the secret source of our technology comes from that experience. What do we do? In a nutshell, this is what we do. Basically, the ability to digitally impregnate color onto a continuous running white thread. And that simple statement has tremendous implications to the textile industry. And I'll detail that later down the road itself. The company was founded by my twin brother, also coming out of the digital printing industry. And this is the play on the words, twin and twine, yarn. So it was an easy catch on the name itself. So I'll kick off with this quote from Jack Ma. My grandmother has one shirt, my mother has three, and my daughter's generation 50. And 48% she never wears. Now, this is a familiar story in our industry. We certainly know of the mass personalization and customization, etc. This is happening now under the traditional approach of manufacturing, etc. But what is the full story? This is the familiar story, but what is the full story behind that? 50. That's impressive. And it's an exponent at the end of the day, the number of SKUs and units that are ultimately at the retail outlets, but on the e-commerce site itself. What is the bill of labor and the infrastructure supporting or facilitating all these challenges in the productions to specifically Jack Ma's daughter? And this is a challenge, the product lifecycle management, the sustainability factor. It's not a buzzword in the textile industry. It is certainly not a buzzword anymore. But we are unable at this point in time right now to really truly track what are the costs and implications in that. And this is basically the statement, true implications and the true cost of doing business in this industry itself. And it is basically the voice of the customer, because it is what is happening today. Happening today with Jack Ma's daughter and everyone, including my children as well. And I wanted to frame this presentation around the customer and then take it backwards. So Michelle, my wife, is a mother of three, and she's a credit card expert. Internet savvy and conscious customer on that. By the way, 2 months ago, her credit card was stolen. She asked me if I had canceled it. I told her no, because the thief was using it more wisely. But I'll go back to the point. What does she want? She wants a beautiful blouse to fit her. She wants it to match her bag or her shoes and personalize it and to fit her. And this is one of the challenges that she needs it, and she wants it now. And we know that the e-commerce space, the purchasing, it happens. There's a lot of returns. She does return a lot of her items back, and they do receive it. But what happens to them at the end of the day? So going forward, she wants it personalized. But how do we get from here to there? This is the challenge. This is what is happening today with virtualization and capabilities, your avatars. You can capture your image and place and fit. You see a lot of solutions, and I won't name because I don't want to do any challenging on names of different type of software solutions to virtualization. But the challenge is the manufacturing process. And again, I want to return back to that quote of Jack Ma. It is happening now. But what is the cost? And this is a big, big challenge on its own. So the traditional process, I won't go obviously into the details of the challenges and the sustainability impact. But today, how does the fashion production process occurs? You have the fashion houses, design houses predicting what the colors of the consumer will ultimately buy. Big challenge. In what country? Is it in Kenya or is it in Canada? It is a challenge on its own. But once it's identified, there's a production process. There's a color matching, selection, sending it the samples to the dye house to produce the garment or thread or whatever, the material substance. And the ecological concern of that, and we know the textile industry is the second largest polluting industry in the world. It's tremendous. I would even say type in blue dogs of India in YouTube, and you see beautiful dogs, sadly enough, walking the streets because they drink and bath from those polluted waters. I wasn't aware. I come from the digital graphic arts background, like most of the team. I did not realize what was the impact of the ecological aspect. And it is not a buzzword, as I mentioned. There's regulations coming about. The brands are pushing to see the sustainability impact. It is critical phase itself. But what is also challenging is it takes weeks. They do try to optimize. So you have solutions and all that, but we've reached almost this asymptote level of where can we go with the traditional means of producing the item? How much do we produce? The mindset also of the textile industry is in bulk and quantities. They look at over supplying. And we know this with the sales at the retailers, etc. What happens ultimately to these goods is a big challenge. Again, I won't go into the details of the numbers, but 80 billion garments produced, and everything is in, thread and material. I mean, without it, we would probably be sitting here with leather jackets or something like that. It is like saying food. It is part of our existence. Now, these are ultimately the driving forces of this industry, the state of the industry and the trends of the industry. This is what is driving us, moving us forward from the bricks and mortars retailer outlets instead of the what's happening now with the e-commerce sites and the sustainability aspects, REACH regulations and other regulations itself and those implications. So both ends are pushing us, driving us towards the digital element. And this is my statement in some respect. It is only when we reach a sell, then manufacture paradigm, because we are right now doing a manufacture, prediction, sales cycles, all that, in order to provide to the consumer market, ultimately. It's only when we get to this sell, then manufacture, and the fulfillment of one, and also sustainable, then can we truly state that we reach this digital transformation. Now, having said that, again, coming back to my previous past, I come from the digital printing background, and I can say in the textile industry, and we've been at Twine for the last 4.5 years, it is not 1,000-fold more complex. It is much, much more than that. I mean, each individual item, it fits. What is the apparel that goes out, or the shoe, and the transition, the innovations that go into the garments and shoes, etc., is impressive indeed. So it's not easy, and it'll take time until we reach that kind of position. What I call basically, again, I have a lot of experience in a lot of R&D and business itself, or even AI. I call it the singularity point. It's a statement that everyone might have heard about the point where we reach it. So digital is the only way to address the most complex industry. And certainly the heart of the problem is what? There are many. But when I look at it, I try to identify what is the lowest denominator. Next slide. But what is the lowest denominator? And the lowest denominator is the material. It's the thread. I mean, that is truly the lowest denominator in the textile industry itself. And that's the singularity point. So where are we right now? Well, basically, we've passed through the basic level, and we've reached the augmentation level. You see a lot of augmentation reality in the e-commerce, but there's still a lot to be done, and I see that as the potential opportunity where we consolidate. The graphic arts, again, from previous experience, has gone through this kind of transition about 30 years ago. Standards. How do we connect? If you were to build a micro factory, can you replicate that micro factory in a different place? What are their labor costs? How are they managing quality, etc.? These are things that is very difficult to do with all these solutions that we have at this current point in time. And so these are the opportunities that were laid out. Jumping to the next slide and looking at Twine itself. We did not look at the technology just as what is the value proposition or the economic benefits, and it certainly has a powerful economic benefit. And again, coming back to the mindset of the current inherent methods of looking. How much does our system produce? How many kilos? Rather than saying how many apparel items, etc. So this is the mindset that we need to change. In fact, I'll try to create a case study instead of having numbers. I looked at how many exhibitors are at ITMA, 1,717, so about 20,000 exhibitors. Now imagine that each individual one has a different colored shirt. Our systems cannot compete on bulk. They print on a continuous, they impregnate the color. But 20,000 exhibitors, and each one with a different colored shirt. Our systems that are currently at ITMA, tiny, like an office corridor printer, would produce the stitch or the thread in about a week. All the thread that is required for each individual with zero water and on demand, no waste, carbon emissions, etc. So this is not kilo. I just told you how much it would produce. And this is the kind of mindset that we need to go through. And so you see a lot of technologies in the printing industry moving in that direction. This is a direct to garment, etc. And again, the challenges that you see is the trends that will follow. So this is basically the tradition, the statement. We have today, when we're producing the garments, large dye houses in order to produce in minimum order quantities and supplying, and then footprint and inventory and dead stock, etc. Now imagine that you have, at the manufacturing concern, smaller systems that are producing on demand and right there, any length, direct to that. That's the sell then manufacture paradigm. And that's the motto of Twine itself. Not just we're providing a solution, we certainly look also in the workflow. How do we integrate these systems? They are agnostic systems, certainly, but we also provide applications or solutions that are cloud-based in order to capture the color of your jacket and send it directly to the system. Print me or dye me that length of thread. That's it. Not just that. How is it integrated into the workflow? I mean, you have different solutions that can, this augmentation. And I don't want to be in a position, well, what's the length of that thread? Or what is the piece of garment in direct to garment? You just want to say, please just print me. We are so familiar with that with our office corridor printer. And this is what we're bringing into this industry. And there's a lot of solutions in digital printing that are out here at the hall itself. So this is what the industrial paradigm shift is going to go through, ultimately, inevitable. So as you could see in the previous slide, there was a Snapmatch, the ability with a mobile phone to capture the color, send it to our system, and there it is. Obviously, it is certainly important to maintain all the ecological benefits. It's a closed system, again, and also the impregnation of the quality of the thread itself, maintaining the characteristics, and we do that. Yeah, so these are a couple of samples that were done through the technology in different market segments, trying to maintain an agnostic level, the ability to take in different type of thread media, different thickness. I want to print Coca-Cola red. Why? That's the color I've chosen. But the thread that went into the stitching and then the knitting and it's part of the garment, it has to match. And I think anyone in the textile industry knows what it is, a challenge on color matching, etc. It is a crazy challenge. And that's one of the benefits of coming as well from the digital. In fact, we have great investors from HP and Coates as well. And the CEO, Rajiv, last night or the day before, we had a dinner, and he said, what I like about the company is that you bring a different way of thinking to the textile industry. We're so used to kilos and bulk and minimum order quantities, and what's the time, what's the cost? And again, thread and material in the textiles are commodity item. The cost, the direct cost is that. The indirect cost is that. And that's what we're trying to bring as well, and a lot of the digital printing technologies themselves. Basically, my final, again, another Jack Ma quote. In the past, it would be impressive if an assembly line can produce 2,000 of the same items in 5 minutes. It would be more impressive if we can do 2,000 different items in 5 minutes. What's missing? Sustainability. I think it is not enough to say, can we produce 2,000 different? Are we producing 10,000 to do that? Are we producing them in order to, again, continue with this method and approach that we're predicting what the consumer wants? And this is a bit of the challenge that we're trying to address. And so we're basically unleashing the power of bread. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alon. Are there any questions?
Well, you can definitely come and ask questions after the show at our booth. We've also got another system at Lonati's booth where we do knitting. So the agnostic nature of our systems addresses different market segments.
I do have one question for you as well. Currently, I understand you're digitally dyeing specific thread types?
Yes, we are currently focused on polyester, which is a big part of the market itself.
And what thread type is next?
We will continue for a while longer, and then we would look. I actually have my VP process and materials. Look, she's in total shock. I still need to train her to come. And she comes from the digital printing industry. She's a doctor in material science. But we'll probably be focusing on these type of materials. But we call our technology digital selective treatment. And our current, when I say treatment, why treatment? Because currently we're focused on color. And we've got color management software, proprietary technology, and perfecting the color to get to that Coca-Cola red. But we do show some feasibilities of additive materials as well, like fluorescent is not an additive, but hydrophobic materials and also reflective materials that will come later down the road.
So the sportswear market, maybe then.
Ah.
Well, thank you very much.